Hello and welcome to the next episode of our Let's Keep the Conversation Going series. I'm delighted to be joined today by Mark Harrington, who is Chief Executive Officer and also Chief Operating Officer at London and Country. Mark is undoubtedly one of the most experienced business leaders in our sector, having worked over 20 years. And during this time, Mark has operated in a variety of roles, which I'm sure he'll tell us about in a moment. But what I know most importantly with Mark is just how focused he is on teamwork and creating a positive working culture. So I'm looking forward to exploring that as we have the conversation. It'll soon become clear exactly why mental health and well-being is especially important to Mark, and I'm sure he'll share some of his own coping mechanisms, which I'm convinced will help others listening. Mark, morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And listen, thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to do this.
Thank you. No, genuinely delighted you agreed to do this, mate. I am. And starting point with each of these conversations is always really just a bit of a whistle stop tour of your career. And I know you've got somewhat of a unique career, and because you tended to be with the same business
Yeah.
for a number of years. But can you just give us a bit of an overview, maybe when you started and came into financial services and to where we are in current modern day?
Yeah, like many people, I didn't grow up wanting to be in a mortgage and protection industry. I fell into it at a certain point in my life, and I grew up wanting to be a footballer, like many people as they grow up. And I was lucky to be an apprentice at Bristol Rovers, so that was 2 years of cleaning boots and changing rooms whilst playing football every day. But then I was released into the real world after deemed to not being good enough, which, looking back, it was a decision that was probably correct at the time. My time as an apprentice was interesting. We had a super role model, a guy called Tony Gill, who used to play for Man United, but had his career cut short by injury. But he instilled that competitiveness in me and others at that stage, which I think I've taken throughout my career, to be honest. Back in those days, there wasn't a lot of conversation about mental health, let's be completely honest. But after the period I was released, I just floated around a few jobs just locally, and then someone I knew worked at L&C and said, "Oh, why don't you come for an interview?" So I went down to the infamous Beezer House for an interview, and I didn't get the job. So yeah, I just walked off with my tail between my legs, and 6 months later I thought, I'm going to have another crack at this, and I went for it again, and I was lucky to be accepted as a mortgage protection advisor back in 2003. So and the story's gone from there, really. I love the mortgage and protection advice because it was so transactional. Every day, every week, every month, every year, the competitiveness of trying to be the best and making sure you're doing the best thing for the customers. But I was never the best advisor. And after 4 years of advising, I then started applying to be a team manager. And similar story, really, that I went for that job 4 times and was lucky to get the job on the 4th occasion. And I still use that story to this day, to be honest, for people like internally who get turned down for internal jobs to never give up. And a really important journey that I can show others that I've been on as well. So, and then I got the job, and that's where my life changed, if I'm honest. That competitiveness replaced the football. I was still playing semi-professional football at the time, so I was still getting a bit of money elsewhere. But if I'm honest, joining L&C was the time that the football career did start going backwards because of the competitiveness was replaced. And then so from being a manager, just made my way up through the layers of management, and then was made on the C-suite back in December 2022, made Chief Operating Officer. And then, luckily enough, in April this year, was very, very proud to be made Chief Executive Officer. Obviously doing the other role at the moment until we find a replacement. But yeah, the role is superb. I'm very, very proud to be leading such a great company. We've got great people around us, and it's just really, really important. As we say, we'll talk about it later, I'm sure. The team ethic in everything we do, really, really important.
Well, team ethic, mate. That's something I wanted to pick up on early doors, really. So, when you got that first step into management and you're running that team, obviously that competitiveness you've spoke about. But what did that early style of management actually look like? And then maybe how's that developed as you've got broader and bigger responsibility over the years?
I think it's developed as the world and sociality is developed as well. If I'm completely honest, if I think back to how I managed in those early days. I always took it from a sporting background. I think the teamwork in the sporting background plays a huge part in management, and the link is huge. And I think understanding how different people need to be managed, like some need an arm around them, some need a kick out the backside. I think that understanding who needs what is very, very important in management. But I do look back to that time when football changing rooms, there was a lot of shouting in people's faces and industrial language. And I think I probably managed in hindsight, probably far too harshly back then. But I think as you understand the difference between the being a manager and a leader, I think it's definitely the softer skills that I've definitely got better with a lot along the way. And I think it's so easy to be drawn into people who are underperforming just because they're underperforming, but we never really understand what's going on in the background of someone's lives. So I think understanding the people that work for you and knowing everything about them, their families, what they do, and asking the questions, I think that is how I've evolved and how we're trying to get other managers in L&C to evolve as well.
Great point. That I think playing people in the right positions and not having somebody, use the football analogy, try to be a forward up front.
Absolutely.
Really, they're a goalkeeper, and playing them in the right positions, but then genuinely caring and treating them in the right ways. It's so important. How have you found, as we've moved into this post-COVID, maybe hybrid world? How have you found that? Because we're not seeing people day to day like we used to do, and people are not having those chats at the side of a coffee machine. So how have you found the interaction and maybe try to manage your leaders so that they're having just as meaningful interactions, but albeit from a hybrid perspective?
Yeah, we were actually discussing this yesterday because I'm sure, like, what are we, 3 years on? And I don't think anyone's still nailed it yet, if I'm completely honest. And most of all us, I still don't think we have. I like doing, like, it's funny we're doing this on Zoom. I like doing everything face to face. So we like all the really important meetings, we make sure they're face to face. I just think you just get so much interaction there. But it's really difficult. We're more probably remote than we are in the office at the moment. Do I like that? No, because I used to love the office environment, but I've come to actually accept that is the right thing now. I think that everyone talked about it's great for people's mental health if they're not in the office all the time. I also think the opposite is true. I think it's really good for people's mental health if they're coming in and talking to people all the time as well. So we're still trying to get the right balance, if I'm honest. And it's hugely different between our two offices, one in Bath, one in Newcastle. They've got different attendance at different times. But yeah, I think we're still trying to get the balance. I try to go into the office 2-3 times a week, just because I enjoy being around people and I don't want to be sat in my son's bedroom for a whole day. But yeah, I think this will evolve over a number of years. Do I think that L&C will get everyone back in the office? Absolutely not, because that's not the model. And I think that we get a lot of people that would be disgruntled if we do that. So it's more about making sure that, and I do actually think there's a link to underperformance as well. I think, and it's about making sure that people who are underperforming, it's not a punishment. Let's get them in the office a few times a week just to give them proper face-to-face training and development as well. And so, yeah, there's lots of different strands to it. I think that I'm not one of those people that's just going to get people back in the office just for the sake of it. There's got to be a reason. And the two reasons are engagement, number one, and number two for training and development.
Mate. And look, I think it won't surprise you then from your answer there to hear that the annual survey we do each year for MIMHC, we obviously we can temperature check different trends from previous years. And I think one thing that was a little bit of a surprise this year was the respondents, 75% of the respondents were either working from home permanently or hybrid, and yet mental health had actually worsened. It was 22-23%. So nearly 1 in 4 of people who were working from home were actually indicating that the mental health had actually got worse. So that panacea we thought we'd see, and everybody probably wanted pre-COVID. Yeah. Now we're in that environment. It doesn't do everything. And I think, like you're saying there, I think, I mean, you've got a lovely environment to work from
Yeah,
now. That environment you've created in Bath is a, so it's certainly conducive to people wanting to come into the office. But it's just that engaging with people, listening, understanding, collaborating. The reporting's easy, as you've touched on. So I think the
yeah,
reporting that maybe we're unsure about as leadership groups in the past, we can report, but it's just that engagement, isn't it? That's really important. And you're right. I don't think any firm has really mastered it yet, but we've just got to listen and keep learning from the staff around us, haven't we?
yeah, correct, absolutely.
Yeah. And then what about, so again, we touched on, the purpose of today is really to talk about mental health and well-being. And again, I know culture and environment, as we said, is really important along with teamwork. But I suppose, it has been a taboo subject over the years, and it's not been something that's really been talked about. We're making some headway, raising awareness, which is ace. But why do you think it's been such a taboo subject? And are we making the progress that I'd like to think we're making? So what's your view on the taboo element, and then are we making enough progress?
I think in terms of the taboo subject, I just think simply it wasn't accepted in society, and it was just seen as a weakness. Like, again, I think people, and that means that people, they feared talking about it. They felt ashamed to even think that they had any mental health. They became confused, and obviously then there's the piece that everyone was misunderstood. Like, I'll be honest, I look back to, say, 5 years ago, and I was one of those. I was like, this is just, what do you mean you're off for mental health? And listen, I'll hold my hands up and say that. And like, again, do I feel ashamed to say that? Maybe, but I think the positive of that is that now myself, L&C, and the work that you guys and lots of other people do, I mean, we are on, absolutely, the improvement has been huge. Like, I've just seen it internally at L&C, and how we've improved and how we continually talk about it. And I think from the first stage of people do it and being inducted at L&C, I do a meeting with those guys, and the thing I talk about right at the end is about mental health. Like, that was never even discussed, like, even 3-4 years ago. And it's just making sure that people know that they can sit up and talk to someone at L&C. We've got mental health first aiders everywhere, which again lots of companies have. But I think people knowing that they can sit up and talk without fear of discrimination or discipline is just really, really important. And that's the culture I want to be leading, not just about mental health, about anything. They can stick their hand up and suggest things about how the business can be run better. But I think just having that open communication line is just very, very important.
And you know what, mate? I think what we've seen over the last few years is we've seen different people in leadership roles within our sector step up bravely and indicate maybe the challenges that they personally faced, which is great. But most encouragingly, we're now seeing the leadership teams or the exec teams that are maybe supporting these leaders really getting behind them and supporting them in the right way. And I just think, whether it's at that leadership level or where it's, with the guys who are doing all the hard work at the coalface, it has become more accepted. But the support and the framework of support appears to be improving, and the loyalty. You just imagine you support somebody by doing the right thing and supporting them in the right way. The loyalty is, I bet it's almost immeasurable, because people have run through brick walls for you if you support them in the right way, won't they?
Absolutely. And again, not just by mental health, there's like the other things as well. Like, if we're making sure we support people when they're going through a bad time in their lives, and most people do at some stage, absolutely, you just hope that loyalty just pays you back in the future. And that we got a few instances, and listen, I won't go into them obviously, at L&C at the moment, where we're supporting people who are going through tough times, and you just hope that they are loyal through periods when it's not so easy for the company. And it's, listen, I've been here 21 years, so you could say I was quite loyal to L&C. And I think that the way people have treated me in the past in a good way has meant that that's one of the reasons I'm still here.
You've had some brilliant mentor over the years, and
Yeah.
I remember Mike Cooks and you Phil Cartwright really well, and it was great environment to great people to actually interact with. What about spotting the early signs of mental health? So you mentioned your mental health first aiders there, and you mentioned how much time you invest in I suppose your managers. how do we spot those early signs of mental health, and what do you expect? What do you expect from your team in terms of supporting people in the right way?
Again, this is where we go back to the remote environment. It's very difficult now. So internally, when people in the office, obviously people's mood swings, like when you can clearly see that they're not sleeping very well. I suppose the key one is people drinking too much. We've probably all done that at some stage. You can see people when they worry. I suppose one of the key ones for me is when people withdraw socially, when they don't go out for social events for L&C. Energy is key. I think, listen, during COVID, we all probably got to the stage where we ran a little bit out of energy when we didn't know what was going on. And then I think the one that linked to mood swings is the anger one, when people become anger, when you're trying to manage them, when you're trying to get them to do more or to do better. And then the last one is people showing anxiety. I think, listen, for me, they're the key ones. But as I said, that's easier to do in an office environment than it really is over a Zoom meeting. And that's why I'm trying to encourage people to maybe do one-to-ones face-to-face, to do team meetings face-to-face. Like, even if it's once a month, at least you can see that person and see if they are struggling with anything. But yeah, they're the key ones from me. It's just become a little bit more difficult. I think in terms of support, I think everyone individual what may work for one doesn't work for another. I think the key bit on the early signs is also just understanding people's triggers, because like that's hugely important, not to make it worse as well. That's probably the key bit. And listen, we've got someone superb in L&C, Rachel Easton-Well, who is continually talking to us about that. And then creating safe spaces to share. I think that's hugely important. Checking their support network. Like, again, like I'm lucky. I've got good friends and good family around me. That in the same for everyone. And I think, and again, it goes back to the management point, understanding what their world looks like. Yeah, not prying, not going asking every detail what they ate for tea last night, but more understanding what's around them as well. There's obviously the crisis support, but I think the biggest one is for a group of managers, and probably for everyone, it's the empathetic nature and the understanding of the situation by listening to people. I think that's definitely what people can, including myself, can still really improve on.
Mate, that encouraging face to face, so you can look in the eyes of people and just have conversation and interaction, and it's the only way you can really spot the different mass people can be wearing, because that's what happens, isn't it? The people who are struggling, they'll try and put a brave face on and just get into the nitty gritty and the hub of how they're really feeling.
Yeah,
you can only really do that if you sat in front of them and you comes back to this genuinely care. If you genuinely care for the people around you, you want the best for them, and you're not probing and being intrusive. You're trying to understand and help, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What about in terms of yourself then? Look, I mean, the role and responsibility you've got, mate. Look, London Country. I'm not just saying it. In my lending days, I always thought you were brilliant people to deal with, but just such an impressive business. And the role you've got now, it's such a big role in terms of responsibility. And with that comes, I suppose, the challenges of that day-to-day managing of your own personal well-being. So how do you ensure you're the best version of yourself? What coping mechanisms and how do you go about just ensuring that you're as good as you can be to lead the group?
Firstly, having a brilliant team around me, and my intention was to create a world-class team, and listen, we're on the way to doing that. I've got some unbelievable people that sit on the Exco and the SLT, so that's hugely important, and knowing that we all talk to each other and are able to open up if we need to. In terms of myself, listen, I'll be honest, it's something that I've just got on with over the years. Simple. Yeah, I think we all grew up where if you got injured, you usually your dad was telling you not to show any weakness by showing you were injured, we had it drummed into us that. But you think back to that, like your legs hanging off, and you're not allowed to show you're hurt, and you're not allowed to show you're vulnerable. It's that kind of, we were all brought up in that generation. It's now trying to make sure the generation that's growing up now is different to that. For me, I think the key ones are COVID, absolutely. When we were working just at home all the time, we were stuck in a house during lockdown. I think we lucky, really great family. We made the most of it, but from a working environment, that was tough. Yeah, I was made sales director in 2019, December 2019. COVID struck in March, so it was the toughest time in my career, and learned so much from it. Made many mistakes, which I'm sure everyone did. But I think the learning we took from that was really important, and that's how we're working today, obviously. I also think, like, how I've been managed in the past, I think sometimes that's a challenge. Sometimes you don't feel appreciated, but I probably only started thinking these kind of things probably after COVID. I think during then I was like, I'm this big strong bloke, yeah, I don't, what's mental health, it doesn't affect me. And looking back, absolutely, when you think, like, externally, not include L&C, when relationships break down, or deaths in the family, or a house purchase falls through, those usual life events, you think, God, actually, I was struggling at that stage, but you just got on with it. So now it's, and it's trying to teach everyone that you've been through that experience where you thought you could just survive everything, and just making sure that people know that it's different now.
You know what, Mark? It's good, some brilliant points there, because I think life is a challenge, isn't it? And working in this sector, although we've been blessed to spend over 20 years in it ourselves, it's a brilliant sector, resilient sector. And but I've said before, there's no perfect pathway to get a mortgage, and there's always bumps in the road which create challenges for us. And I think that resilience is a crucial part of life, isn't it? And I think there's a balance between people just understanding that sometimes we do have to just get up and dust ourselves down, and do it in a way which sees us to be able to just crack on positively, and I suppose not cry wolf. And I think that is something that, as we move forward, making sure that people understand, look, we do need a bit of resilience. We do need to accept that there's going to be some challenges. There's a fine balance, I suppose, is what I'd say there. And what about, I mean, in terms of maybe just hints and tips that you would give people? So you've mentioned the importance of conversation, and that group that you've been blessed to have, you've been able to turn to. But I just wonder, maybe what kind of hints and tips you'd give people who are struggling, and because we don't want people to be suffering in silence, do we? So what kind of hints and tips would you give them?
Listen, it's the common one. It's okay not to be okay. I think that's really key. Celebrating small wins with these people, and making sure that, listen, something really small can make a massive difference to people. Also seeking professional help. Like, I'm I'm absolutely battering myself here from what I was 5 years ago. I'm not going to a doctor. Do you know what I mean? And it's seek, not just about mental health, but other things. Just seek professional help. That's what they're there for. Prioritize self-care. And the two that, well, maybe three actually, the 2 or 3 that I've been doing more definitely over the last 6 months is basically trying to get more sleep, being far more healthier in a diet, and exercising. That's the 3 things that I've been concentrating on personally, to try and make myself a better version and being a better leader to those people. And it definitely is working, because I feel much calmer. I'm quite emotional, heart on the sleeve type guy, and I think doing those things has definitely made me much more measured and calmer and balanced. But then just building support networks, just making sure that if people haven't got their families or friends around them, how can we build them a bit more of a support network at L&C? But yeah, I think they're the key ones for me.
We can't underemphasize the importance of sleep. And again, I think it won't surprise you to hear, again, survey people operating in our sector working longer hours than they've ever worked, and not getting enough sleep. And I think it's more than 1 in 5 of respondents just never get the minimum. So never in one night in a week do they get the minimum 7 hours. So I think burnout is something we've spoke about in the past. And how do we maybe combat and just ensure that people don't suffer from burnout?
Yeah, it's a really important one. And again, I wouldn't even. I've probably had burnout at some stage. I wouldn't even know what it was. Do you know what I mean? Because it's one of those things, as you say, you dust yourself down and you're resilient. I think for me, I just want people to work their working hours. I'm really keen on people to work from 9 till 5:30. Our lunch, work as hard as you possibly can during that time, service as many customers, giving the best experience to those people, yeah, and then not having to work outside those hours. And I've had that view for some time, to be fair. It's not even the last 3 years, 5, 6, 7 years, I've been encouraging people. Like, I'm the world's worst, by the way, and you're probably the same. I work outside of those hours, and I'll often be sat next to the family watching TV with my laptop, iPad on my lap. But so I've probably got to change myself there as well. And my chairperson, Mr. Rickards, is always telling me this. So yeah, I've got to take it on board.
You've honoured that, didn't it, Mark? We'd get those emails coming through from our bosses in years gone by at like 11:10 and 5:45 in the morning. You think, flipping it. And it was almost a badge of honour. But one of the things I've found myself doing now is you can time your emails. So even if I'm sending an email at 10:15 at night, which I know is a little bit naughty, but if I'm doing it because I've got stuff on my mind,
yeah,
there's an ability to now to just time it, so at least it lands in the person I'm sending its box a reasonable time. Because I don't expect that of others now around me, Mark. I used to, but I don't expect it. It sounds like you're saying the same thing.
absolutely. We've just of late. So we've introduced two things, and it was for mental health, really, for the managers and leaders. We now have a no meeting Friday. So we don't have any meetings on a Friday, which gives everyone a chance to do their job on the Friday before they go into the weekend. And that has been a huge success across L&C. And then of late, we've also stopped people sending emails out of hours. Like, again, looking back to some of the emails that emotionally used to send late at night, and I received when you get up in the morning and you think 9 o'clock in the morning, you're looking at an email that's really negative because of something. It just absolutely it ruins your day. So we've exactly the same. So we've made sure that now people only sending emails after hours the following day. So
and what's your view on like social media? I know it's not something we've discussed in the past, you and I, but this perfect world that seems to get portrayed in your Instagrams and your Facebooks, etc. What's your view on the social media?
I'm just such a dinosaur in this bit. If you're probably not the best person to be talking to me about this, I'm not on Facebook. I've never been on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, but rarely use it. LinkedIn, obviously, we're quite active on that because of L&C, and we're trying to portray the brand, obviously. But apart from that, no, I'm not on it. And I kind of think I should come off of Instagram, because although I don't use it very often, I find myself scrolling, or whatever the techie phrase is nowadays for it. I just find myself sat there for 10 minutes looking through everything. I'm thinking, God, I could be doing so much better with my life than this. But it's the way of the world, isn't it? Like, I've got two boys and a girl, and the two boys are forever on TikTok, and the girl who's only 5 she's already looking at screens and all on phones and iPads already. So I don't know. It worries me for the next generation, if I'm completely honest. But yeah, I try to stay away from it.
We did an event a couple of weeks ago, and it was sunlight before blue light. They were encouraging. So not reaching for your phone and not reaching for your laptop as soon as you wake up, and just seeing a bit of sunlight, and even getting in the garden with your bare feet and getting on the grass in your bare feet. It was I could see a load of logic behind it. But yeah, I'm probably as guilty as you at some time. But you can choose how you start your day, can't you? So you can choose to ignore this stuff or receive positive information, I suppose. And then just returning to, I suppose, the challenges that some people can face with mental health and well-being. What do you think, if we've got people out there listening who are maybe working in an environment where the boss is dismissive and not as supportive as maybe you've embraced in your environment? What kind of action do you think these people should be taking?
I just think they should be confident to speak up, because listen, we've got to get to the stage where it's not acceptable. We've got to make sure that every leader is talking about this, making sure that you are working in an open environment where you will listen to people. So we just can't accept it. And I think that internally, I would just hope that people would be able to speak up and speak to someone else about this. But yeah, I suppose there's not a lot more to add to that. It just shouldn't be acceptable, and we just got to encourage people to speak up.
Yeah, good point. And what about business leaders? So on the flip side of that, if you're a leader thinking about embracing a positive mental health and wellbeing framework, what would you say to a business leader in terms of the upside and maybe the how any challenges embracing it actually can deliver into the framework?
Yeah, drive that culture from the top down at every opportunity you get. Don't just use it as a tick box, which I've seen previously. People just use it as a tick box. I do this. No, you don't. You're not living it. So it's not just driving the culture; it's living the culture yourself as well. But I think what we've really done well at L&C is just getting a group of champions across the business at all levels. With mental health, there's no hierarchy. Yeah. So we've just got a group of people across the business that is led by, as we mentioned earlier, Rachel, and just making sure that we're just driving that culture all the time. So I think that the business leader can drive it, yeah, but everyone's on the same level with this and making sure that everyone is driving it alongside them.
Yeah, I love it. And you know what's clear as we're talking here, I can see there's a passion for it from
Yeah,
yourself, which again, if it's and we have to see this cascade, don't we? Through all different organisations, particularly in our sector, which does have its challenges, as statistics, yeah, paint towards us. So, and the passion does come out, which is great. And is there anything? I know we've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to cover there. Is there anything that maybe I've not asked that you would have liked me to ask, or is there anything else that you'd like to maybe touch upon? Because look, what's clear is this focus on people and looking after people in the right way is part of the DNA within your business, and that culture that you create in the environment you've created. I've seen and looked and felt it and saw it myself recently, and it's a great culture and great environment to operate from. So it's clearly on your agenda. But is there anything that maybe we've not covered that you'd like to cover, or maybe something that's coming up the track that you'd like to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I think just really a thank you to you guys and all the other people that are driving this across the industry. I think it's so impressive that people are stepping up and taking the time to do these things. Like, as we said, everyone's evolved over the years, and again, probably no more so than me with some of the things that I've said today. But it's that journey that we've got to take everyone on. It's the same as sustainability, do you know what I mean, and vulnerability. It's just picking those subjects up and just making sure we run with them. And I just think, listen, you guys should be very proud of what you're driving.
Listen, and thank you for becoming a signatory and helping us raise awareness. We're up to 175 signatories now. We're touching over 20,000 individuals with those signatories, and we're still in the awareness phase, but we're not even past first base yet, mate. I promise you, we've got so much to still achieve, but we couldn't do it without the support and collaboration of people like yourself who are taking action. So it's not just words, taking action and implementing good processes. So we want to learn from that, and I think all that good stuff that you do within that L&C business, I think as we move forward, all the signatories, when they're delivering some best practices, we just got to find ways to showcase that with the platform we've got, so people can embrace and take their own bits of action away to implement. But look, I'm really, really grateful for your support, your team support, and thank you for giving your time up to today, which has been really appreciated. And look, I just wish you lots of luck for the future. I hope it goes great, and thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really enjoyed it.